Well, Elon Musk just replied to a friend of mine with one sentence: AI is the highest ELO battle ever. And he's not kidding, because in the last few days, Google dropped Gemini 3, the TPU suddenly looks like an absolute monster, NVIDIA is scrambling to get Blackwell clusters deployed, and xAI, working hand in hand with Tesla and SpaceX, is building data centers faster than anyone in the world. Grok is now inside Tesla's, influencing navigation, SpaceX is preparing for AI compute in orbit, and the rate of scaling is starting to look less like software and more like a space race. And here's the twist: Elon and Sam Altman originally created OpenAI because they feared Google would dominate the AI race. They may have been right just 10 years early. Today I'll break down Hans Nelson's post, Elon's ELO comment, and the brutally competitive AI landscape where companies, countries, and maybe civilization itself are playing for all the marbles. Let's take a look. Before we start, a quick shout out to my channel sponsor, Joa. They make the best accessories for your Tesla and other EVs, and they have amazing warranties and customer service too. I use their accessories daily. Check out the link in the description and get 5% off a fan-cooled phone charger, a portable tire inflator, a fold-out lap table, and so much more. Oh, and they make perfect gifts for your EV-loving friends too. So check out the link, save 5% on a great gift for someone else or for you, and now let's get back to it. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. So yeah, I want to riff on this post here. Number one, congratulations to Hans C. Nelson for almost 5 million views on this post, and it's a good post. I'll start with Elon's response here. He said, AI is the highest ELO battle ever. ELO comes from chess and has been taken over by gaming and stuff. It's basically your ranking, and the higher the ELO scores, the more elite the play is. And so he's basically saying that this is the highest ELO battle ever. In other words, it's very, very elite tier stuff. And then he continues on, speed of deployment of hardware, especially robotics, is the linchpin. So of course he's talking about Optimus, the humanoid robot, but also of course Tesla vehicles themselves, because they are four-wheeled robots. So let's move on and read Hans's post here. Google's recent Gemini 3 release has shocked the world with undeniable proof that the TPU is a powerhouse AI chip, leaving many to wonder what lays in store for companies like NVIDIA and xAI. And of course the TPU, or Tensor Processing Unit, is Google's competitor to NVIDIA's GPUs, and generally speaking, because they were created from the ground up to be AI chips rather than graphic processing units, they don't have quite the baggage that NVIDIA's chips do, and so there is the opportunity for TPUs to outperform NVIDIA's GPUs. But of course, NVIDIA is not sitting still. So as Hans says, listen to Gavin Baker lay out the exact strategy that Jensen Huang and Elon Musk are going to roll out over the next 12 months to beat Google at AI. The world is in for a huge surprise. We'll see the first models trained on Blackwell in early 2026. I think the first Blackwell model will come from xAI, and the reason for that is just, according to Jensen, no one builds data centers faster than Elon. Jensen has said this on the record, and he certainly has. So if you're Jensen or NVIDIA, you need to get as many GPUs deployed in one data center as fast as possible in a coherent cluster so you can work out the bugs. And so this is what xAI effectively does for NVIDIA, because they build the data centers the fastest. They can deploy Blackwells that scale the fastest, and they can help work with NVIDIA to work out the bugs for everyone else. So because they're the fastest, they'll have the first Blackwell model. And this of course is speculation, but it seems like reasonable speculation. And as Hans says, we know that these Blackwell models are going to be really good because Blackwell is much, much faster than the older chips that they're currently using. Then something even more important happens. So the GB200 was really, really hard to get going. It turned out that it was really difficult to get these things up at scale, and certainly to integrate them into large data centers. But the trick here is that the GB300, which is the next generation of this, is a great chip, and it is drop-in compatible in every way with those GB200 racks. Now you're not going to have to replace the GB200s there. Just any data center that can handle those, the GB200s, you can slot in the GB300s, and now everybody's good at making those racks, and you know how to get the heat out. You know how to cool them. You're going to put those GB300s in, and then the companies that use the GB300s, they're going to be the low-cost producer of tokens, particularly if you're vertically integrated like xAI and Tesla, etc. are. If you're paying a margin to somebody else to make those tokens, you're probably not going to be. I think this has pretty profound implications because I think it has to change Google's strategic calculus. And then there's a full conversation between Gavin and Patrick. I will leave a link to this and other posts in the description so you can take a listen to this. It's definitely worth the listen. And just before we move on, because this also tails into my video, Philip Johnston, also referring to this interview, said, the most important thing that's going to happen in the world in the next 3 to 4 years is data centers in space. And Elon has talked about this quite a bit. We have the first NVIDIA H100 operating in space via StarCloud. And Elon responded to this, yeah. Alrighty, so let's discuss all this. First of all, Gemini 3 definitely shocked shocked people because it was much better than people thought it was going to be, and it's now basically the front runner in terms of AI models, although I personally still prefer ChatGPT. We'll get to that in just a moment. Anyway, this validates TPU performance and all of the work that Google has done to build their TPU hardware out, so that's really cool. And apparently Google will now be selling TPUs to third parties as well, which is also a really big event and puts a lot of pressure on NVIDIA. So scaling TPUs plus Gemini 3 means Google is way back in the fight now. A couple of years ago, we thought they were out of it. It seemed like they were doing nothing. Now, all of a sudden, they've leapfrogged, and they're basically at the front of the pack. But importantly, what Hans is calling out here is that Jensen has publicly said nobody builds data centers as fast as xAI, and therefore there's a likelihood that the best NVIDIA chips are going to get funneled to xAI as quickly as possible so that they can build out their 50,000 or 100,000 node cluster as quickly as possible, because that will not only help xAI, but will also help NVIDIA to sell more chips. And if that happens, xAI will get the bonus of being the first to train on these new Blackwell chips, which gives them a huge advantage in terms of their model. So we can talk about Elon's Elo comment, and that's kind of weird. Elon Elo, I don't know. I just think that's an odd coincidence that they're almost the same word. But anyway, like I said in the opening, Elo is a skill rating in chess, and it's been taken over by gaming as well. And of course, it's been taken over to some extent by AI competitions as well. So there's an Elo score for a lot of things now. It used to just be chess, but now it's a whole bunch of things. Anyway, what Elon means by the highest level, of course, is that we're talking about the absolute best in the world competing with each other. It would be like chess grandmasters competing with each other. It's on that level. So hardware, of course, is scaling exponentially at this point. And as Elon always talks about, speed of iteration is the most critical thing. So deployment speed is now the most critical thing. How fast can you get the latest generation of chips into one of these gigantic clusters, hook them all together, make them work synchronously, cool them all down, get the data in and out of them, transfer the data around effectively? This is all a massive, massive challenge. This is not like plugging in a computer and just running. It is hugely challenging to do all of this stuff, and xAI has proven to be incredibly fast at this. So infrastructure in general is becoming strategic, and this isn't just a gamified rivalry here. It's actually a civilizational contest because of the consequences of winning, losing, making the right bet, making the wrong bet. It affects these companies, of course, but it also affects government and potentially society at large. So it really is an existential game that's going on right now. So let's compare the US frontrunners right now in terms of their strengths and weaknesses, but let's also remember that China is there always knocking on the door and disrupting things. So they will have a big thing to say about this. But for today, we're just going to concentrate on US companies. First of all, Gemini's strengths. Number one, they are basically the world's leading search engine. So they have a huge amount of products related to that. They have search, they have workspaces like Google Docs, etc. They have YouTube, they have Android, they have a ton of data that they can collect and use. Gemini 3 is also extremely strong at reasoning, and they have their TPUs, which are proving out to be quite effective. But they also have constraints on their end. They have a lot of bureaucracy. It is a huge company. They have cultural caution. They move very, very slowly. They roll out their hardware and software very slowly, and they have a much weaker robotics pipeline than a lot of these other companies, in other words, embodied AI. Next up is xAI, which is kind of a dark horse candidate because it didn't exist a couple of years ago, but they kind of have a nuclear engine. They have something that's really, really pushing them. So first of all, xAI just moves faster. They've got Elon's manufacturing discipline. They're able to build out their data centers faster than anybody else. They have an extreme bias towards shipping product and seeing what happens. They have tighter teams, they have fewer committees, and they have a huge collaboration with NVIDIA, which gives them gigantic advantages. And of course, if they train the first Blackwell model, that gives them the opportunity to learn faster than everyone else, to establish training norms for this new chip, to optimize scaling before others even start on this, and to gain cost per token advantages as well on the inference end of things. And Grok 3 and afterwards would get to be frontier level earlier than everybody else. So that would be a gigantic leapfrog moment. Next up, we have the triumvirate, I guess you'd call it, the xAI, Tesla, SpaceX synergy between all these companies. That word's been overused too many times, but there is a synergy. These companies really do work together. You've got Tesla with real world data and robotics. They have millions of camera laden robots on roads right now. Full self-driving is continuous learning. Optimus, the humanoid robot, of course, is being built. There has been some slowdowns, but it's still making a lot of progress. They have synthetic to real world reinforcement loops that work really, really effectively. And as I said in the opening, Grok is now integrated with Tesla Tesla navigation. That is a huge step forward. That is a real connection between xAI and Tesla. And then, of course, going back to this post from Philip Johnston that Elon Musk replied to, you've got the connection between xAI and SpaceX. In other words, putting AI data centers into orbit. And Elon Musk has expounded on that previously. I've got a video about that up here, so I won't go into it in as much detail, but it's really important. That would give us an AI platform in orbit for global inference at very low energy costs. And of course, this is dependent on Starship and rapid reusability, but if that works, Tesla has a huge advantage that absolutely nobody else can even compete with, except for eventually maybe New Glenn and Amazon Web Services, but that's farther in the future. So xAI and SpaceX would have a huge first mover advantage in that case. So the big advantage for xAI in collaboration with Tesla and SpaceX is that no other AI lab controls land, sky, orbit, and real-world robotic data all collectively in one. I know they're not the same company, but basically they are interacting with each other in a way that really allows them to operate in a lot of senses as one giant company, and that gives them a gigantic advantage. Next up, let's talk about OpenAI. I think that they have the best agentic behavior currently, at least. They have the best alignment and safety out there. They definitely have the cleanest UX, and as far as I'm concerned, I think ChatGPT 5.1 is just the best experience. I prefer it. I think that it's the most helpful. It creates the least useless responses, and I think that that's also an important metric. So this is my opinion, but I think that they have the best user experience. Of course, they have the largest consumer footprint. They have a huge consumer footprint. And of course, consumer mindshare. When people think about AI right now, they think about ChatGPT. And they have a developer ecosystem that is fairly dominant. As for their weaknesses, they don't develop their own hardware, at least not yet. So they're dependent on Microsoft, NVIDIA, etc. for hardware and infrastructure. They have no robotics to speak of, and they are not vertically integrated. So those are some huge deficits they have to overcome in order to compete in the future. And finally, we get to Anthropic, which has exceptional reasoning models, really good at coding. They're by far the best with safety research and deployment, and they have a really good RLHF, or reinforcement learning with human feedback loop. And the company has a lot of elite talent, but they have very limited compute. They're constrained by AWS, speaking of Amazon Web Services, and Oracle, and they don't have any robotics or hardware play at all. So they are, they're doing really well in terms of business use and everything, but I think in the future, they're going to have a hard time continuing to compete in this increasingly competitive landscape. And then we have the outsider, Meta. They do have open source dominance, which is great, but they don't really seem to have any AGI ambition, and they're influential, but their influence has really fallen off. Their latest Llama models are just not that competitive anymore. So in terms of the quest for AGI, I don't think that Meta is really playing in the same league as these other companies. And then we have the wild card. As I've mentioned many times on this channel before, I think at least one more major architectural breakthrough on the level of transformers is necessary in order to get to really, really usable AI, or what most people would call artificial general intelligence, or AGI. And quite frankly, there are a lot of papers about this right now. There's a lot of research into this. We just don't know yet if we found the winner for that next generation architecture. So why aren't transformers the end all be all? Number one, they don't have continual learning. You have to put things back into a training loop in order to reteach the model. That is very, very slow and cumbersome, and leads to the, first day on the job problem all the time with AI. They're also not great at stable long horizon planning. They don't do embodied cognition very well. They don't do agentic feedback loops natively. They will do it, but it's kind of a kludge. You have to put stuff around it. And memory permanence, which goes into the continual learning idea, they tail together, that is very weak as well. So what are some possible replacements out there right now? Neurosymbolic hybrids are definitely one. Differentiable world models, active inference architectures, agentic multi-module systems, or something we just haven't even seen yet. We don't know what the answer is yet, and more importantly, we don't know if that answer actually exists. If it doesn't exist, that means that we could be spending trillions of dollars on a play that goes nowhere. So when Elon says they're playing at the highest ELO rating, they're playing a game where we don't even know if there is a winning strategy yet. So like I said at the bottom of this table, they are playing for all the marbles. So the ironic part of all of this is that Elon Musk and Sam Altman founded OpenAI in 2015, or 10 years ago, because they feared Google and they feared Alphabet's compute, the amount of compute that they have to throw at AI, and they feared DeepMind's talent density. But if we fast forward 10 years, Google is back in a really, really huge way, but now xAI is rising as a competitor to both Google and to OpenAI. The race has gone multipolar. In other words, there's not just one or two companies, but there are several, like I laid out. And OpenAI, that a couple of years ago was just completely dominant, is still very, very powerful, but their dominance is definitely decreasing and they're very much reliant on other companies, most importantly, Microsoft. So the irony here is that Elon and Sam were definitely right to worry about Google. They just didn't realize how long the game would be. And as Elon said in his post, this is now the highest ELO battle in the history of technology. So in the end, we're watching trillion-dollar companies compete for AGI in a landscape where they don't know what the right play is or even whether this game can be won at all. And if there is a winner, it doesn't just affect these companies in the hugest way possible. It's such a huge game that it affects governments and every single one of us in society, potentially existentially. So this is about the biggest game you can think of with the highest stakes in a game where nobody knows the rules or even whether you can win. So we have massive data centers, we have embodied robotics, we have orbital compute that's going to be coming online, we have the potential for new architectures. Everything at this point is on the table. The likely outcome is that either no one is going to win, in other words, there is no winning strategy, or one or two players will win and everybody else is going to lose. And in the end, humanity is going to have to live with the consequences no matter what. So as Elon said, this is the highest ELO battle ever, and it's only just beginning. Alrighty, folks, that's what I've got for you today. Let me know in the comments what you think about all of this. It's a little bit scary to think about the existential importance of all of this stuff. While you're down there, if you don't mind liking the video, it really helps out with YouTube's algorithm. And if you want to really help me out, either subscribe or check that you're still subscribed to this channel. Subscriber growth really tells YouTube that people are interested in this channel, so it really helps me out. Thank you very much, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.